So I'm hoping this can be just kind of informal and informative, and I hope that you won't let me talk uninterrupted for 45 minutes. I hope that we can have some conversation. And see, I've already driven one away. One down, 18 to go. Oh. You're good. You're good. All right. So I'm realizing I don't have a slide about myself. Let me say a word about myself. My name is David Wiley. I'm the Chief Academic Officer at Lumen Learning. But I also, before that, was tenured associate professor at, we got it started, at Utah State University and then Brigham Young University, where I taught in our graduate programs on educational technology. I'm still adjunct faculty, and I still teach in the program at BYU, as well now as teaching as an adjunct in the business school at Marshall in West Virginia, which is where I live now, at Marshall University. I am fascinated by AI. I am old enough to remember when the internet came to higher ed in the mid-90s. I was the first university webmaster at my university and just loved everything about the internet. And that's how I got into educational technology. And this moment feels very much like kind of 1995, 1996, when the internet first came to higher ed, and it was all panic and chaos and cheating, and we'll never know if anyone learned anything ever again because, the internet's going to be the end of higher education. So it feels very much like that moment. So I've been working on experimenting with generative AI in my own teaching. And what I wanted to share with you today is just this little technique that I've been working on that I call the review prompt. And the review prompt is something that I create for the students, and the students cut and paste it into the model of their choice. And that creates all kinds of interestingness as we talk about the personalities of different models. But the review prompt, maybe you can think about it as something designed for students to use after they've done the reading, watched the videos, etc., but before they've come to class. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to kick off an interactive review activity where the model is going to ask students open-ended questions, give them corrective feedback, give them the opportunity to dive deeper in on any topic that they want to learn more about. And so I had the opportunity to teach a course this past spring called AI for Instructional Designers. So a very specific course for folks who are going to be building online courses, supporting faculty who are building face-to-face courses that need to know enough about how generative AI works to be able to use it effectively in the design of their courses. That's the context for this work on the review prompt. I will say that it's kind of a Pareto design, I would say, and that there's, I didn't invest a ton of effort, an hour or two maybe, into this prompt over several cycles, but with very little effort, you can get a ton of benefit. And I say it's kind of a Pareto design because I think if you wanted to get all the rest of the possible benefit out of generative AI as a tutor, it would take a ton of additional work on the prompt engineering side, and you're probably into RAG, and you're probably into tool use and function calling and a bunch of other stuff that I didn't want to get into. But just with a relatively small amount of effort, and a very, very straightforward prompt, was able to have a lot of success. And it's possible to cheat and get a lot of additional nuance into your tutoring by saying something, for example, like apply the principles of effective tutoring from the research of Art Gracer and Kurt Van Lane. And ChatGPT 4, and especially 4.0, knows about that research, and you just pull it in and apply it without you having to spell out what all the findings from their research are. So it's possible to do that, but I have some different goals for this prompt around using it to support students' metacognitive development, and I didn't want to confuse the matter with pulling in additional things like this. So I was using it mostly as a way to flip the classroom. You don't have to use it this way, but I found it super effective in this way. Basically, at the end of each, and I'll show you the course in a moment. But at the end of each kind of week's worth of reading and video watching, there's a prompt for students to copy and paste into their model. And then once they've done that and they've engaged in the activity, then they take the transcript of their conversation with the model and upload it into the LMS, and that's their assignment. The assignment is, if you're using ChatGPT, you can just grab the link to the transcript, and that's super easy. If you're using Claude or one of those other models, you might have to copy the whole thing and paste it into a Word document and upload the Word document into Canvas, or it's D2L around these parts, right? But then once you've done that, kind of everyone's prepared for class, because the assignment they had to do was to do a review quiz that's quizzing them, giving them feedback that's correcting their misunderstandings, giving them opportunities to ask follow-up questions. And they do all of that. And then you can see the transcript of that. And then you come into the classroom together. And so you can do different kinds of things when people are prepared in that way in class than you could do alternately. And so I was such a knucklehead. Like, I spent about half the semester reviewing all these by hand before I realized, just take them all and throw them into the model and ask it to summarize what people. It's like, oh my gosh, are you guys all still having those moments where you're working with AI, you're like, this is actually pretty cool. I might be doing something useful with AI, and then you realize you're missing 18 obvious things that you should be doing, but you're not. So I keep having those experiences over and over. So this is the link to the course, AI for ID, Artificial Intelligence for Instructional Designers. So if you would like to have a look at it, you're welcome to. But I'm just going to go over there and grab. I think there are 3 or 4 weeks where I was using these prompts. But this first week's about neural networks and how they work, and there's some readings and some videos to watch. But this is the prompt in the different text here. Let me bigify it a little so it's not such an eye chart here. But it's really straightforward, right? I've just finished studying about neural networks, not trying to master the math, just get a conceptual understanding of key concepts. Give me a quiz where you ask me the following questions. Ask me one question at a time and wait for my answer. After each answer, give me feedback on my answer and explain anything it seems like I don't understand. Then ask if I'd like additional information on that question. And then when I indicate I'm finished, ask me the next question. It's really not very complicated. And in other projects I've been doing, I've been realizing that it really is just a matter of, if you had a first semester grad assistant, a TA who was pretty bright but had never taught before, and you're going to say, here's exactly what I want you to do during office hours. That's first versions of this prompt are like, ask me a question. It would just ask all 10 questions. Oh no, actually, I need you to wait for me to answer after you ask a question, right? Like building in every little detail of how you want it to behave. Do you guys remember Amelia Bedelia? Is that a name that anybody read? So I think these models are a lot like Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia was this character from children's books who just misunderstood everything to great kind of comical effect. So let me share this other window and just show you what it's like when you use this prompt. Oh my goodness, can that not get any bigger? Well, that's unfortunate. Let's see. Let us try a different window because we need to be able to see it better than that. There we go. Oh, except I'm not sharing. Thank you for your patience. Here we go. Bigger, bigger. Okay. So here I've just pasted in that prompt. Oh, and I need to scroll down. And it says, great. Let's get started with your quiz about neural networks. What are neural networks? So let's be wrong here for a minute. They are machine learning models. Oh my goodness, never type while people are watching. Whose design is based on the human digestive system. That's not quite correct. They're actually inspired by the human brain, not the digestive system. Here's a little more information about them. Would you like more information on neural networks, or should we move on to the next question? let's see, there are a series of algorithms that try to understand underlying relationships in a set of data. Okay, whatever. Great. Let's go on. Enter. Uh-oh. My ChatGPT is hung. There we go. All right, question 2. So it's just going to pick up and ask me the next question. What are nodes in a neural network? I'm going to say, actually, I don't remember. And it's going to say, that's no problem. And in neural network, nodes, which are also called neurons, are the basic units that process information. Would you like some more details? Let's ask it for a little more detail. Sure. Can you go into a little more detail? Detail, maybe use a metaphor. Oh my goodness. I promise I really do know how to spell. Sure, think of nodes in a network like workers in an assembly line, right? And here it's going to go on. But do you get the kind of feel here of, say, ask me these questions, wait for my answer, correct my misunderstandings, give me an opportunity to ask follow-up questions, and then go on. Yes.
I'm trying to support your goal of not talking 45 minutes.
Thank you. Excellent.
I'm really confused. You're asking the question, and the student may respond with an answer. Who shows him the right answer? Are those your words or AI?
This is the AI. So
What if AI is wrong?
so what if the AI is wrong? It's a great question. No, seriously, like when students sit in class and they don't understand and they go out and find a TikTok video or a YouTube or something else, what if that it's the same question that we have with all the kind of supplemental information that they find. When you review the transcript, because after they go through this exercise, did you just come in a second ago? After they do this exercise, they upload the transcript of their conversation with the LMS to me as an assignment, and then I can review it. Yeah.
I work in a classroom. I do too. I'm going to ask about, because you're talking about some technical information, but the accuracy. What is your experience with the amount of times that you make mistakes? Like, is it frequent? Is it occasional?
Well, every new model, it makes fewer mistakes. Especially if you're teaching any kind of general education course or something that there's plenty of information about online, it's going to do really well. If you find that it's not doing really well, then you can, there's kind of the, how do you say it? Kind of simplified version of RAG where you can say, you can use this attach here and you can, oh, you can't see that. So there's a paperclip here and you can click on that and upload a document and say, only provide answers to my questions based on what's in this document. So that can keep it on the rails a little more, but it also kind of decreases the amount of creative flexibility that it has. So there's some trade-off there. I have found when it's incorrect, it's mostly incorrect because it's doing Amelia Bedelia kinds of things. Like I haven't been specific enough in saying what I wanted it to do, or I haven't given it enough context so that, like, when I've got this in another slide deck, I don't know why I didn't put it in here. When the Rogers tell Amelia Bedelia to draw the drapes, she sits down and draws a picture of the drapes, right? Actually, draw the drapes means close the curtains, right? So the prompt development is super iterative in that way. You try it, kind of works. You try it again, it works a little better. And like I said, I think overall, I probably spent about 2 hours on this prompt, not a ton of time, but compared to the amount of time that students spent doing one-on-one review, being able to ask additional questions, things like that, saved me a ton of time. Yeah.
Have you used it to generate any models of these concepts? So like as a review, generate a model of a neural network.
What's an example of what that model would look like? What do you mean?
I don't know. I don't know what neural networks look like.
Oh, they look, oh, I'd have to switch around. There's a lot, well, to your question, you're not actually asking what neural networks look like. You're asking,
Correct. Have you used this work to generate images for review? Like you said.
oh,
there's
images.
like a assembly line. So.
Yeah, it's great at metaphors in text. You can ask it, you can say, use Beyonce concert tickets as an example, and it'll figure out a way to do it in a reasonable way. Images are far sketchier than language in terms of kind of being accurate and useful, I think. But it is true that you can tell it, I want you to provide the answer in this specific format. So say, for example, you want to build a little review quiz, a 5-item, 10-item review quiz in Brightspace for students to do. You can say, generate 10 items for me that are, 3 distractors, 1 correct response, write feedback for each of the blah, blah. So you can tell it how you want it done, and then look at them. And when you're happy with them, say, great, now give me all those questions again in QTI format. And it'll give you a downloadable file that you can import into Brightspace, and you're done. It goes right in and it's wired up and ready to be used. So you can ask for the answers in different like file formats. Give it to me as a CSV or an Excel file or this or that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Sorry, Stephanie, I'll get to you.
practically what I'm hearing that you did with this is you can use the document, like what I would do with my student, I would take a document that I developed about what I'm teaching, and I will copy and paste that, put it in and say to the prompt, make me 5 NCLEX questions with the answers, blah, 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 about the whatever it is, and it pops up. But this way, what I could do is actually make the prompts for the students, like you did, like a 1 question at a time. I can make them to work in groups, 1 or 2 of them during the class. And I know where the content is seeping from. It's seeping from that 1 document that I stole before. Yeah,
you can do it that way, but you don't have to. I haven't done it that way. So I developed these prompts, and then I went in and played with them and answered correctly and answered incorrectly and this and that. And I was happy with the way it was answering. So I didn't create a separate document that I had them upload to provide kind of guardrails for the answer. But if you're playing with it in your discipline and you find that it keeps giving you these kind of crazy answers, then that's the first thing I would do, is I'd give students the prompt and I'd give them the document. I'd say, use the paperclip, upload this document, paste in this prompt, and then start. Yeah, Stephanie.
Would you mind repeating the questions that are asked in the room for the participants?
So Stephanie said, would I mind repeating the questions that are asked in the room for the people who are online? No, I would not mind that at all. Thank you for the reminder. There's somebody in the middle of the room here, I thought, who had, no? No, great. Oh, okay. Great. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question that's probably not related.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. If you purchase a copy of ChatGPT 4.0, would students need to have a copy also of that software?
Oh, so they can actually, so they can use the prompts with any model that they want to use them with. And this is something we actually spent some time talking about in this class that I taught. All the way back in January of this year, which is 18 dog years in AI time, the only free version of ChatGPT was GPT 3.5. Now, if you, when you go to use the free version now, if you don't have 4.0, you will very soon. They announced last week that's what everyone's going to have for free in the future. So I had some students in the class who used GPT 3.5. I had some who had paying subscriptions and were using GPT-4. Had a bunch of people using Bing, which says that it uses GPT-4. Had 2 students using Claude, and had 1 who was playing with Bard, which is the Google model. And it turns out that they all have very different personalities. Like, I don't think Microsoft is a sponsor of this convenient. I hate Bing's personality. Like, I don't enjoy talking to it. I don't like the answers that it gives me. But it was a great kind of opportunity in class to talk about I was really dissatisfied with the answer I got, or really what model were you using, and kind of sharing that around in terms of kind of developing some AI literacy about the idea that not all the models are exactly the same. And it's not just that they give a different factual answer, but the answers really do have a kind of personality to them that you might gravitate toward one versus another. By the time we get to fall, every student should have free access to 4.0. Everyone who has access to the internet should have access to 4.0 for free. Yeah.
Not to derail, but what do you mean by personality?
Oh, the vibe you get off of the words it chooses to use as it responds to you. So I would say that Bing was a lot more, Bing just didn't have time for your foolishness. That was the vibe that students got off of a lot of the questions that they asked. The answers are very short, in a way that didn't feel like you want it to be concise, right? You don't want it to go on forever and ever. It doesn't need to. But just the feeling of the interactions was just like, it was very impatient and not trying very hard to be helpful. Okay. No more bad mouthing Microsoft, at least for me today.
When you are interacting with a large language model on a regular, you can get it sometimes come back to you with things. You ever have, and I'm just curious on this one, your students who then turn around and use their onboarding interaction with large language model to generate flashcards or study aids or anything like that themselves?
Yeah, so the question is about, I think there's really two questions. You said one was about the model remembering things you talked about earlier, later on, and then the second was about using it to generate other kinds of content. So yeah, you can ask the model to generate like flashcards in Anki format, if you know the Anki tool for making flashcards. That one seems to be harder rather than easier. You have to craft the prompt just the right way to get it to actually give you the downloadable file. You can also get it to generate answers in H5P format, if you're familiar with H5P, which is a little interactive kind of player. A lot of that takes what they call either one-shot or few-shot prompting, where a shot is an example. So you might say, create a set of 10 flashcards for me, give it to me into Anki format, by which I mean make it look exactly like this, and then you give it the JSON format from Anki of 2 or 3 example cards, so it knows exactly how you want the output to look. We talked about this a lot in my class. It's surprisingly, maybe it shouldn't be, but it's surprisingly like trying to teach a human person to do a task. Like they try it, they can't get it right. Show them 2 or 3 examples. Oh, okay. Now I can do it. If you show me 3 examples of what you want the output to look like, now I can make one. Or ask a math question, like a word problem, gets it wrong. If you say, no, go step by step and show me your work, and it breaks down and does the individual steps, it's correct much more often. Like the same kinds of approaches you would take with a learner who is struggling to perform, the same kinds of tips will get you a long way when you're having trouble prompting the model.
I was actually thinking, I was thinking about exporting to the kind of awesome. I was wondering if the chat itself is more language model itself to study it later on in the semester.
Oh.
Say to ChatGPT, okay, everything we've talked about over the last 15 weeks, using flashcards.
Okay, no, so every time you start a new conversation with ChatGPT, it forgets everything from every other conversation. Now, you can open this little sidebar that shows you all the conversations you've had in the past, and you can rejoin an earlier conversation. But the models also have, like if you think about a learner and their short-term memory and what they're able to keep in their head while you're having a conversation with them, language models have a version of that that's called the context window, right? And so as the conversation goes on and on and on, eventually the first things that you talked about get pushed out of the context window and it can't remember them anymore. Even though you're in the same conversation, So you couldn't have a whole semester long conversation, then get to the end and say, make me flashcards for the whole term. Because the odds are very high that a lot of what you talked about would have been pushed out the top of the context window at that point. Yeah, well, depending on which model I mean, if you're using Gemini, where there's 1 million token context window, I mean, talk about crazy uses for AI, just for me to get off the point for a minute. At the end of, I think it was game 5 of the Timberwolves series, there was a very questionable foul call made. And somebody took a 5-second clip, the slow-mo clip of that foul happening, uploaded the video clip into Gemini and said, is this a foul, yes or no? And it analyzed the video and came back and quoted the NBA rules and said, yeah, based on what I'm seeing here for these reasons, yes, this is a foul. You know how much context window you need to stuff video into the context window? Like the bigger context window models, you can drop an entire textbook, you can drop a whole novel, you can drop, I mean, they started out very small, like 4,000 words initially. Now they're 1 million tokens long. So the longer context windows are making lots of really fun stuff. Amazing. Yes, ma'am.
David, I'm curious, how is this impacting the classroom experience? So are you finding students more prepared? Are you finding more engaged? And then a follow-up, are you also integrating like actual quizzes based on this, that then they're showing your memorization learning? Or is this your quiz?
This is the quiz, but the design of this course is really more project-based. Right. So this is all the, are you developing all the kind of skills and knowledge you need to be able to do the project?
Okay.
So they do, this was a class that only met once a week. It met on Fridays. It was a graduate seminar, right? So Thursday at 11:59, their transcripts are due. Then I read the transcripts Friday morning. Then in class, I'm like, I could see that a lot of people were asking follow-up questions about this topic. Let's talk about that for a second. I mean, it's the same thing that you would do, just like switching hats. Like if you were using some of Lumen's courseware, for example, and you go into the courseware before class starts, and you can see right there of all the topics you're talking about this week, here are the ones that students struggled with the most, here are the ones they've mastered. It's the same principle of just looking at the data that are available to you before class and then adapting what you do in class based on what those data say. It's just kind of a different view, right? Different view of those data. Any other thoughts while we're paused here? Yes.
First of all, I love this idea. I'm doing review quizzes before every class and it works, but this would be better. I still have the same, sort of the same question. So if I were to ask, for example, how do you acquire ownership of a trademark? The answer has to be the United States. Federal trademark, you have to use it in interstate commerce and then register. So I just checked that question and ChatGPT comes up with how you register, but it doesn't mention that you have to use it first. So this is something I want to comment on, and I'm trying to decide how to do it efficiently and quickly. And I think it's probably the same question I asked before. So how do you handle this? You get an answer that's really not right, really just an essential step. You should read every transcript or.
Yeah, I mean, now this is a smallish class. I had 25 students and then about a dozen faculty who were auditing. So I was only actually grading for 25. And the transcripts aren't, mostly they're not super long because students don't do a lot of follow-up questioning. They just answer, read the feedback, and then they go on. So they're pretty quick to read through.
Read them, use it as a prompt for your own comments.
Yes, yeah. I'm going through them before class, and then in class, I'm talking about them. Yeah. No,
we have a question in the chat.
Ooh, thank you.
At CUNY Queens, they have a group of student peer mentors in biology. Thus far, they found they still need those mentors who took the course and have subject knowledge, because the test question outputs often produce some, not all, questions that were too easy or too difficult. So they still needed folks who knew the subject matter for curation. Are you finding similar issues?
Yeah, I think for formative purposes, which is what I'm doing, right, with this review quiz, which the way I grade it is, did you do it or did you not? Right, it's not how many questions you got right. It's did you go in and have the conversation and do it. I think it's great. I think this is great for those kinds of purposes. I would never use it for a summative assessment without a human being reviewing it first. I'm not super nervous about it replacing all of us because, well, there's a whole semester long conversation about why that's true too. But if you want to use it for anything other than practice and review and something like that, you gotta have a human involved. So that doesn't surprise me at all. That's the approach they're taking. I think that's the right approach.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Have you ever brought some of the transcripts back to the class and said, okay, there's 3 mistakes in this, find them, and then have them review it and figure out what the, no.
No, I haven't done that. Although I do have a question a couple of slides down about ways to have conversations with students about the accuracy of the models, and that would be a great way to do that. All right. I only have one other thing that, at least to me, is interesting. Your mileage may vary. Well, one other, I think, interesting point to make. Here, let me get my screen share going again. And that is around using these prompts as kind of metacognitive supports, or supporting students' metacognitive development. First, I asked the students if they'd give me some quotes that I could share about their experience working with the prompts during the semester. So I've got a couple of these. I'll just let you read them. We talked specifically about this in class. Can you explain it? Can you explain it to me like I'm 5? So that was something we talked about in class. Let's see here. I think there's a handful of these. So this is a lot. Sorry. And this is reflective of one of the conversations we had in class, right? About, as you're talking to it, if there's something that you're really struggling to understand more than the rest of it, ask it to use a metaphor. And those were some of the funnest conversations in class when people were sharing the metaphors that it came up with. Because you can either ask it, use a metaphor like I did a minute ago, or you can say, can you explain that using, the NFL as an example? And it will actually, for a workshop I did last week, I was trying to make the point that generative AI will create brand new things that don't exist. And so you can ask it for things that you couldn't find on Google by searching on Google. And it took me a while to find something that I searched for on Google that I couldn't find anywhere at all, which ended up being explain Maslow's hierarchy using the Earth's atmosphere as a metaphor. I couldn't find anyone on Google who had done that, but then ChatGPT was like surprisingly good. Like I actually understand more about the atmosphere now that I read that. Yes, I think this is really interesting, right? Instead of me giving the questions, have them come up with their own questions. And I'll show you how that affected the later version of the prompt in a minute. Bless you. Okay, but that's the last one. So I'll leave it up for a second. Yeah, okay. So one thing that I do think is interesting here is a lot of students either haven't ever had a study skills class, or it's been since middle school since they had a study skills class. They don't really know what effective studying looks like. They just kind of do whatever it is they do, or they do whatever their buddy does. And so it's pretty interesting to talk with students about their experiences using the prompt. Because if you'll ask them, like, what things are you learning as they're using the prompt? Not about the class, but like about making the prompt work for you? Are you tweaking it in some ways? Are there, lists or things that you've developed? Getting students talking about the way that they study with each other and with you is really, really powerful and good for them to hear the way that other people are studying, what's working for them, getting examples. And then you, to the extent that you're able, chiming in to say, actually, the research would say that highlighting and rereading is a really low effectiveness study technique. You should do something else with your time other than that. So having the prompt be this kind of campfire that you can all kind of intellectually gather around and talk about, how's this working for you? What are you doing? How have you made it work better? Getting students talking about and reflecting on their own studying and learning processes is like great. And that's what metacognitive development is about, right? It's about getting them to think explicitly about how they learn, what they're doing, whether it's useful or helpful. And then, and you saw this in one of the comments too, talking to students about how can sometimes you take a class and that class uses a tool or a platform or something and you really like it, you find it's really effective, and you're like, I wish my other professors were using whatever. Lumen courseware, obviously, right? I wish my other professors would whatever. Well, the great thing is you can take this prompt and you can adapt it to use in all of your other classes too. You don't have to wait for your faculty member to make this prompt for you. If you were going to adapt this prompt and use it in your intro to econ class, how would you do that? Like, what parts would you leave in? What parts would you take out? Why do you think that's true? And asking those questions about what is it in the prompt that actually makes it helpful? Again, kind of gets them engaged and thinking about their own study skills and how they learn, and all that is super helpful. I've got a whole other presentation, and actually we have a whole 9-week-long professional development kind of series about using generative AI to implement more evidence-based teaching practices. This is kind of the flip side of that, using generative AI to implement evidence-based study practices, so engaging in retrieval practice. For example, so this is kind of a genericized version of that prompt that I showed a minute ago, right? I'm taking a class about something. I want to review what I've learned about some topic. Give me a quiz where you ask me questions about these topics, and then again, right, one at a time, wait for me to answer, etc. So I've got this here. This is a bit.ly link, bit.ly/LLM-review-prompt, or if you're a QR code person, you can do that. If you have a device, will you take a minute and open this up? Because what I would love to do for the next 5 or 6 minutes is to have you take the prompt, put in 5 or 6 topics from a class that you teach, and have you try interacting with the prompt yourself and see how it goes.
Anybody else is gonna move the talking thing out of the way?
Oh, I don't know if can I do that? I can't see it on my screen. Oh, maybe it's because it's on this one over here. Oh, wait. Okay, is that better? Yeah, excellent. Surprisingly fragile, aren't they? Stephanie, have you still got eyes on the chat? Thank you. Sorry. I hear that exasperated sigh a lot in these AI conversations. We're going to take it until about 1/4 for this. Odds are pretty high that you're going to need to tweak it for your particular use case, but it might work pretty well right out of the box. We'll see. Right. And of course, you can keep doing this after we're done, but
Yep.
about 2 more minutes on this while we're together. Broccoli 77 wants to be an editor. You have to be able to just copy and paste it out without being able to edit it. And then you can make the edits into your own copy. Sorry, I love Broccoli 77. That's a great name. All right, one more minute. And then we'll have about 5 to wrap up. All right. Anybody get far enough into this that they have something they want to share?
The terrible habit of giving you the answer and then automatic prompts that integrates.
So you probably need to change the prompt to say, do not give me the answer.
It said, sure, I'll do that, and then gave me all that.
Yeah, well, like I said, they each have different personalities. And you'll need to tweak according to your discipline. You also need to tweak according to the model. Do you use Copilot across your institutions? Everybody using it? Yeah, okay. I mean, that's actually really nice. If everybody on campus has a license for the same model, then you can kind of dial in what you're doing for that and assume that that's the model everybody's going to be using. So that'd be quite the benefit. Right now, it's like the old days of, I don't know if, are people going to access my website with Internet Explorer or with Firefox or with, and you know, it looks different on every single web browser. So it's still early days like that. There's another, have you raised your hand again? Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
ChatGPT
It's really enjoying talking to you. I will say it is a large language model. It's not strong at math. If you really want to, if you want to be an AI hater, then there are lots of things you can do on the math side to show it being really stupid, right? You can ask it, it takes an hour for a towel to dry in the sun. How long would it take for 9 towels to dry in the sun? Right? Things like it's not good at math. Yeah.
It's just that I gave it an answer and gave it a correct answer. And for the simple point of speed, and it said it was on track, but then gave you the four things I was like, oh yeah, that is right, that is right. I could pull them.
Huh.
So if I was studying and I did it, then I might have more expanded remembrance. I thought that was a great.
Nice.
Would be good for students.
Okay.
I have it was about the COVID, so I just put loss of reality in the environment, and says we're in the right track. Psychosis is indeed characterized by loss of contact with reality. To elaborate, psychosis is a symptom that affects.
And then it goes on.
That
Yeah.
goes on.
That's exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty good at that. All right. Well, that's awesome. Let me just close just one last slide here. Oh, another comment in the room. Oh, thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. I think using generative AI as an effective learning tool is going to be a critically important literacy for students to development. I would go so far as to say in the past, we talked about things like writing across the curriculum. I don't think it's crazy to imagine there's going to be AI across the curriculum before very long. We're talking about how we integrate this in across all the disciplines. And like every other literacy, it can only be developed through practice, right? The only way to learn about these tools is to play with them. And it really is, at least a lot of the time, it really does feel like play. These systems, as students use them to study, they absolutely will present students with information that's not accurate at some point, which is the same problem that we have when they go out and watch a random TikTok or YouTube or something else. So what strategy are you going to use in your classroom for dealing with that? You know, I talked about how I review transcripts. And then how are we getting students to think critically about these things? Critical thinking, which has been one of our top target skills we want students to develop forever, just becomes even more important in this context now. That's all I had prepared. We've still got a minute or two if there are final thoughts or questions. I will plug, if you'd like to do a 9-week-long version of this, the professional development that we do through Lumen is absolutely free for everybody. And if you teach a general education course that you'd like to have some courseware with that includes some of these built-in prompts for students to do some AI-related things, talk about that as well. But anyway, I had a blast. You know, this is the first semester I'd really kind of deeply integrated it in my teaching. I'm going to do more things in the fall, so just still lots to learn and having a lot of fun. Yes, Stephanie?
One question online.
One more online.
How do we access the Lumen course, please?
Oh, you would either go, well, Tori, what's the best answer to that question?
So everyone here should have received an email sometime in the last couple of weeks. The first round of survey started May 29th.
Oh no, the courseware she's asking about.
OER.suny.edu.
oer.suny.edu is the best way to find that.
Thank you.
And again, because of the partnership that Lumen has with SUNY, the PD is free for faculty, the courseware is free for students. It's all free.
One more.
Yeah, go for it.
One more question. A lot of times when we attend or when I attend these AI workshops and conversations, it's all about having the students go out into their own ChatGPT or their own LLM and doing their own prompting. Is anybody like setting up their own sort of chatbot LLM and having it access through Canvas or Moodle or Brightspace? And I'm guessing there's like, you'd probably need to use API calls and stuff like that. I think somebody just alluded to, if you do that, there may be cost associated. Is anybody doing anything like that?
Yeah, so it was the voice of God speaking to all. Your voice just came out of nowhere. It was amazing. So yes, and two of the things that you pointed out, or two of the things you said, I would point to specifically. If you wanted to develop your own chatbot, to do that, you'd have to use a technology called an API, which is a way of getting your window to talk to ChatGPT. When you use the API, you get charged by ChatGPT per token, per word. So whoever it is that makes that little window that all the students are typing into is paying per word for a word that they ask about and for words that come back. So that creates a lot of expense if you created one of those and it was successful at all. Probably the most successful one of those to date is the one that Khan Academy has done called Conmigo. And Khan Academy, which is this massive nonprofit that has just tons of money, charges users $20 a month for it because it costs money to provide that service. There's the money side of it, but I also like giving the students the text of the prompt and having them cut and paste it in for all the kind of metacognitive reasons I was talking about before. I like them to see it. I like them to think about it. I like them to reflect on it. I like them to be able to play with it. When you embed it all in a chatbot, students lose all that flexibility, and all they can do is what you've kind of set it up to give them permission to do. And then you centralized all the cost accumulation as well, which could be a problem for whoever's going to provide that. Okay, I've kept you 3 minutes too long. Thank you very much. Super fun. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. That was wonderful.